I'm recording locally. Let me start the call recorder too.
Trash feature speed run.
Actually, the call recorder isn't open yet, so give me 1 second. All right, it's running. It's running. All right, Alice, ready? 3, 2, 1, mark.
Hello and welcome to this episode. Fuck me.
Was this cold open?
I'm going to start it again. Okay. Hello and welcome to this week's Free Trash Future. It's me, Riley. I'm in studio with Hussein, who has to get off his phone.
I'm never going to get off my phone. But, hi, I'm back. Yeah. I'm here.
Shut up, Riley. I'm texting.
Shut up, Mom. I'm editing pics of my feet.
I mean, if Nate is podcast dad, then Riley is podcast mom, right?
I can't pause it. It's online.
No.
Riley is podcast stepmom. Like,
I would say podcast.
Doing his best, but never listen to. You're not my real mom. Shut up.
And also, like, somehow, like, nude all the time.
You never teaches me how to fuck.
Podcast older stepbrother, for real. Like, there's no. Come on.
And I'm also
cool older stepbrother, but also older stepbrother who's like,
stepmom and stepdad.
I was gonna say stop touching my Warhammer figurines, but that was a better joke, Milo.
Also with Milo.
Hello, it's me, your podcast step uncle.
No, you're the podcast like dirty friend who's always coming by.
Like, damn, coming by what?
Fuck off.
Podcast Austrian step uncle.
Okay, children, play any way you like, but not in the basement.
Can I please audition like 4 new co-hosts?
No one would do this.
And also we have Nate on the boards in studio.
Hey, so a weird story. Back in August, I fell off my bike and got a concussion. My brain hasn't been completely normal ever since, although it's mostly recovered. And today, I was like really running behind, but I was like, fuck it, whatever, and I'll get some work done. I'll lounge in. However, I got on my bike, I come in, not looking at anything, not caring about anything. I show up like 3 minutes before this episode recording was supposed to start, and I was like, oh, do we have an episode today? And the look on Riley's face was like, you motherfucker, I made notes, you piece of shit. So that's the kind of day I'm having.
I slaved over a hot MacBook.
He's gonna get. He's gonna get.
Smells like cum. I can't get the smell out.
He's gonna get new co-hosts, and they're all gonna like sound like Laura Koonsberg.
Nathan, why am I not surprised? You piece of shit.
Yes,
I can't believe Laura Koonsberg's gonna be our new dad.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Everything you do is gonna have to conform to her definition of shit posting, which is just making the worst cringe content.
Yeah. We're all posting cringe.
Did we all see the Brexit cast video today?
And also we have Alice, but let's introduce the Brexit cast video.
The podcast daughter, I think. It's like the one success daughter in a family of fail sons.
Yeah.
I mean, as the expression goes, all parents have there's certain habits and their emotional support eldest daughter, and that's what Alice is to our podcast.
That is what Alice is to me.
Anyway, you're listening to the Little Women podcast.
Yes. And also, Milo, it's not called the Brexit cast anymore. It's just called the Newscast.
Oh, we've gone back to the news.
Goddamn news, yeah.
The endless onslaught of the news. It's so funny to me that they're renaming it Newscast when Brexit is still going on. Okay, no, hang on. Let me start again. It's extremely funny that they called it Brexit Cast in the first place, which is like the dumbest name. Like, all of the Brexit, all the time. Are you wondering what's going on with Brexit? We sure are. And then just changing it like, oh, we're bored now, so that's news. Yeah. But Brexit's still happening, but we're just calling it news now.
Yes, it's just the normal news. It's been accepted into the community of news. Oh, that video
that went around was
all
like
their fun little inside jokes of just being like, oh yes, we're talking to a linguist in Brussels. She's laughing in 3 languages.
When I listened to it, I was kind of like, it works really well if it was like a satire against Brexit cast, right?
Yeah.
Like, it would have worked really well if this was just him insulting, like, all the kind of in-jokes and all the kind of just, like, the bizarre things. Because even, I've never listened to an episode of Brexit Cast before, but, like, listening to that, it was kind of like, oh, this was really as, like, insufferable as people said it was. But then I found out that, no, actually, like, this is a live show, and this is more like a farewell to the good times, and
it's all the, like, and all the, like, fucking people in the audience guffawing, who are all the most, like, Lib Dem looking motherfuckers, and I'm like, seriously? This is your level? You're sitting here being like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
I love to have a parasocial relationship with Katja Adler.
Look, I gotta be honest with you, all right? So you would think from the reactions they get that Andy Borowitz's stories in New Yorker are universally fucking reviled. But actually, they're their most popular stories because there's that many dumb, smug, liberal dads in America that, like, people read that shit. So I guess it bears mention that this stuff is way more like, we're the outliers. We're the exception. We're the aberrations here.
Yes. And
what are we doing? We have to give up. Shut the podcast down.
And so, for the rest of us, I present to you all the name of the startup, Genies.
Oh, no.
I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go and be Andy Borowitz's intern.
I'm a genie in a soft bank. Gotta rub me the right way.
It's worth over $100 million.
Okay, well, that tells us nothing.
It 3D prints denim.
So what you're basically saying is it hasn't lost enough money yet to be valued.
As always,
Genes for children.
As always, I'm
no
going to
one's
say.
ever thought of this before.
As always, I'm going to say it's something phrenology based.
Yeah.
Hussein's closest.
Oh, and their tagline would, of course, be made by children for children.
Wait.
So
is it genie spelled like jeans, like blue jeans, or jeans like genetic material?
As in, rub the lamp.
Mm.
So, Genies is in rub the lamp.
Okay.
However, I'm going to give you the first clue. The next human race.
It's phrenology.
No.
It's phrenology.
Yo, what's up?
Oh, God. It's eugenics?
Wait,
Yeah.
is it like a thing where it
Movie
matches
pop.
your DNA to another person for like dating? To have like
it's
the
way
most
more-
powerful children?
Think more frivolous.
Really
it's
thick
the genes
children.
thing.
It's
It
a
pre-
wine, like a wine service, but it matches based on your genetics.
Yeah, for some reason
Okay,
it
that would be
keeps
good.
saying the Niagara Escarpment.
Of course you'd say
According to your genome, the microclimate you'll enjoy the most is.
Look, I like Riesling, okay? And there are I'm not going to do
But
this
it's
right
just
now.
hilarious though, because it's like Riley, like your family has lived in Canada for probably like 100 years. The idea that you're genetically adapted to the Niagara Escarpment is such an absurd concept. Like, if anything, you should be drinking some kind of potato slurry that's fucking been fermented by accident.
Yeah. I just love the idea of Riley just drinking a delicious German glass of Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Sorry, what wine has changed? Genetically
Jason
coded bottles
Statham?
Yeah,
being
see,
drugged.
Canadian wine is so good because it got all of the recessive genes.
No,
but, like,
I'm doing. Shut up! I'm doing Foxhound, which is Solid Snake saying wine has changed. ID tag bottles to genetically controlled soldiers.
Okay, so
If I don't drink a crisp bottle of Chateau Neuf de Pape in the next 15 minutes.
Okay, number one, Shadow Neuf
Why
de
would it
Pape
be
would not be
crisp?
crisp. It does not have that acidity profile.
So
Fuck you.
remember 2 minutes ago when we were making fun of Brexit cast for being too dense and inaccessible and smug?
Now I'm going to again just condemn my co-host for not engaging with the content of Hideo Kojima enough. I will say that Genies is the world's first avatar agency. I haven't blanked out any of the words there because I know you won't know what that means.
Oh, it's where-
It designs your fucking second life.
does it make you like a Bitmoji character?
Yes,
makes
Nate's
you-
got it.
You guys, I was hoping you get to be a 9-foot tall blue thing on a different planet. And it's all
when
directed by James
designs your
Cameron.
persona.
Yeah, no, Nate got it. Remember when I said it's worth $100 million?
For Bitmoji avatars.
Oh, it's not just Bitmoji. It's more
It's
detailed
so much
Bitmoji
more.
avatars.
Why is it like take your actual genetic profile?
No. It's just it's a little more cartoonish.
Do they
and
3D
you're-
scan your head?
No, none of that.
The character upload thing from FIFA 2004 is now worth like $100 million.
Yeah,
Hell
more or
yeah.
less. But
does it at least have Jerk It Out on the soundtrack?
it's not even that. It's just Bitmoji, but with more like Zoomer branding, so like more Gucci bum bags, and then some like more facial features and bigger heads.
So you're
So it's
saying is
basically
my
like-
girlfriend's a Zoomer?
It's like the phrenology menu from Mountain Blade, but
Quite a bit, yes.
Oh, God.
So, but they're not just some kind of competitor to Bitmoji. They're an avatar agency. What do we think that means?
Do you have to get signed?
Yes.
Like, and then they
No,
take
Milo.
10% of your avatar
Yes.
revenue?
Milo.
You're kidding.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh,
It's
no.
an influencer agency, or are
Yes.
they like? Do they
It's
kind
an,
of
it's an
treat?
influencer agency, but they signed the influencers'
Oh,
avatars.
fuck. There's going to be virtual Love Island.
Yes.
Oh, I hate
No.
this.
Yes.
No.
I hate this.
No.
I mean, wasn't that what Avatar was anyway?
Virtual
Wait,
Love
what?
Island. I
Avatar,
was just
yeah.
thinking, I love the idea of paying, so like having to get signed, having to compete for the privilege of being signed to get an avatar so that you can post cry laughing emoji under any political post ever. And people just like, yeah, this is somehow elite tier because I've got a really good Bitmoji.
Well,
It's
So what-
like
so
people
much.
spending money on the Jeremy Renner app.
So who they are signing is they're signing like Shawn Mendes and Kylie Jenner and famous people, and then
Friends of the show.
they'll make an avatar that looks like them and then verify the avatar.
You know, something funny. You know, there was, I can't remember the name, and I've never actually watched the show, but I've heard about it. That like one of the top earners on YouTube is a little kid who reviews toys, but obviously like making a little kid make review videos like is a lot of work, and YouTube has rules, and then also just like there's a certain amount of how much work can an 8-year-old kid do. So what they've done is they've basically created like a 3D rendered version of him and like hire voice actors that sound like him. So now they've built the brand that the kid doesn't even have to be involved anymore. And it's weird. It's insane to me. I'm dead serious.
Yeah.
Dead serious.
I hate when I find out that this applies to all YouTubers, and Ian from Forgotten Weapons is just like an algorithm.
the primitive technology guy. It's just a hologram.
The primitive technology guy actually always wears a suit and goes around by helicopter everywhere.
Uncle Punjabi isn't able to make his videos anymore because they fall afoul of YouTube's child labor laws.
I'm gonna Steve MRE info is
so here's a quote. Here's a quote. As the first agency to represent talent through digital avatars, we provide access to content and brands
analog avatars
that allow you to earn revenue without needing to be physically present for your content production.
So that's basically what I was describing.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
It's an agency for that.
Didn't they do this like 10, 15 years ago with Second Life already? Like,
yes, but this is worth $100 million.
Okay.
It's weird to me. It's like if I had just been good enough at school to get into Stanford, then I could have like made my 8th grade dream real, which is be like, what if people paid me to design rude versions of them on the WWF Royal Rumble fucking character creator?
So, Alice, one thing.
Hang on, question.
Yes.
If you die in the avatar, do you die in real life? Does your brain make it real?
No, it's just like getting kicked in the balls. So, Alice, to comment on something you've said, it's not like Second Life. It's an avatar that's just for like iMessage or WhatsApp.
Oh, okay, that's much worse. So it's like Second Life, but it's much less functional.
Yes, correct. It's like, what if Second Life had no functionality and just was allowed you to sort of punctuate chats? So it goes on. Whether your top priority is on the court, in the studio, or on tour, or in the discoteca.
I'm glad you said it because I was going to.
Your genie can represent your identity when you can't. And I mean, and so it's a version of
Epstein alive in digital?
It's a version of Bitmoji where celebrities have verified status, and also you can put on Gucci. So, the 24-year-old CEO, Akash Nigam, said...
That's a fantastic phrase, the 24-year-old CEO.
No, he's 26 now. He's matured.
Okay.
This is from an article
like
2 years ago.
Riesling.
If, God forbid, Donald... They do age well. If God forbid...
Borussia Mönchengladbach.
I'm trying to change the lyrics from David Bowie's Teenage Wildlife from as ugly as a teenage millionaire to as ugly as a 26-year-old CEO, but it doesn't quite scan.
So, if, God forbid, Donald Trump bombs North Korea, you'll see your genie riding a nuke to North Korea.
Oh, cool.
What?
Okay.
I feel this is Balladian. Like...
Hang on, no. If this is for young people, why the fuck would it be referencing Doctor Strangelove, a film which famously young people have seen?
Because... the first iteration of Genies was that they would act out news stories as you.
Oh,
then
like the Taiwanese news channel.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there was an app. It was like a Taiwanese, or I think it was a Hong Kong app that basically you scanned pictures of yourself and it made an avatar version that would like dance and do videos and things like that, but they could just turn that into a thing that acts out the news or whatever.
Yes.
I'm very excited to see fucking Fireman Sam beating the shit out of the police dog from Paw Patrol.
I just remember I used that app one time and I sent the video that it made, and it was this horrible song to my friend who speaks Cantonese, and she's like, it's a weird version of you, but the song you're singing is like, I'm a beggar, I live on the street.
And now you can do that. So,
new Taiwanese rapper.
So back to this. It says, this is Genie's plan to be the next BuzzFeed. Your genie is the star of the show, and the script is whatever happens in the world that day. So that was their first iteration as Genies, was to basically make a hyper-realistic Bitmoji avatar that acts out the news.
The example that they went with was nuking North Korea.
However...
a thing that happened.
However, now they pivoted, and it's an avatar marketing agency.
I guess I just think about this, that like this makes sense as like a really small startup, like somebody's Patreon. Like, you know, some people do sexy personas on Patreon. People could just do avatars for you. But the idea that it's valued that much is just really fucking with my brain.
Well, here's what I've been thinking, because Milo made a joke about like someone about a joke about
Fritzl.
yeah.
That guy who comes up weirdly constantly.
Yeah.
What this reminds me of is like, so there's a game called VR Chat. It's not really a game, but it's like it's on Steam, and like you enter these chat rooms and like you can kind of be a different character. So you can be anyone from like a jacked, like Goofy to it's like the most bizarre kind of virtual reality.
The
characters
horniest player wins.
right? And like you can act out yourself, but you can be in this sort of like avatar.
It's like Club
right?
Penguin. It's all fun until someone gets banned for saying the N-word.
The thing in like Steam is that like most of the people like in these kind of rooms like communities like build them and they create them and they set the boundaries and everything. So this is like a shitter version of that, where you don't even get the virtual reality component of like, because when I think about, well, why would you want to be in an avatar? Like, I guess like the only real reason is so that you can like fuck. That's like the only thing that makes sense to me.
Well, the
Really
one thing
excited to fuck hentai Jeremy Renner.
the thing is,
right. But like, actually, like, I feel like that's like a reason why loads of people really like these VR
that's
games.
why people were buying the stars on the Jeremy Renner app, was you could get to like fuck and automate Jeremy Renner.
It's just like a very restricted version of that.
Star Spangled Renner,
to-
the official theme
to
tune.
be clear, this company is like these avatars like Bitmoji and so on are popular among like Zoomers. Like,
Are they
Yeah.
actually, or do they just say they are?
no,
The
it's
only
one
person
of
who
no,
sends me Bitmojis
it's one
on
of
my
the-
It's
is my
truly
mom.
the alien in a pod of the
It's
modern
one
era.
of the most popular apps to download on the store was the Snapchat-owned Bitmoji. Like, it is very widely downloaded and very popular among Zoomers. This is unarguable. However, the fact is that the valuation of this company is connected to the fact that it is slightly shinier. It's got some hype because their killer of Bitmoji is we're going to have celebrities on it who can get verified and we'll partner with Gucci.
Yeah.
So
For millennials listening at home, it's like Charizard.
So, Akash Nigam's parents gave him an ultimatum. This is from his Forbes 30 Under 30 profile. Raise $3 million for your startup or stay in college. He chose to drop out and raise the money.
What a choice.
His first we'll come to why that choice was later. His first venture, alongside co-founder Evan Rosenbaum and a third co-founder, was an app called Blend, a group messaging channel that raised $2.7 million and was hailed as the next big thing, but then failed to gain any traction and died.
Can we pause for a second, right? Because this is a trope that really annoys me. Is the like 24-year-old millionaire being like, yeah, I just dropped out of college to start a business because I realized when I was at college that college was gay, and it's like this is like it's so dumb. It's like, you know what? Maybe if you'd have stayed in fucking college, you wouldn't have started a business that was this fucking stupid.
However, he is making an enormous amount of money.
I know, but it's so stupid. He's only making an enormous amount of money because of fucking Saudi Arabia is run by insane fail sons with too much money.
Hey, he's making a lot of money.
Yeah.
He should have stuck at it and then like become unemployable and got a podcast like real people.
So
It's the honorable path, Alice.
Yeah.
So he
we
continues.
are all posting samurai.
Akash Nigam says the next wave of communication through avatars where people feel comfortable expressing themselves is on its way. Celebrity investors like Offset from Migos have even used their genie to stand in for them for brand sponsorships. So the avatar poses for photos instead of them. Suddenly now,
I didn't
brands-
stay at Jeffrey Epstein's house. That was my avatar.
That was a convenient place to load up my avatar.
It was a very convenient place to send my avatar.
Suddenly, brands like the scooter company Bird were calling Nigam to try to pay to get the Genies celebrity network to post videos of their digital avatars riding birds on the day of the new scooter launch. Or Gucci partners with Genies to let people ride their avatars in Gucci-branded products.
It sort of makes sense that if you're an artist or a celebrity or something, that this is an opportunity to basically license things without having to deal with the frustration of stupid endorsement shit, like where you have to go through the shoots and all the other crap they make you do. So, I mean, I get why that would be popular, but I don't know, like, it just seems... the idea of it being this much big business is weird and frightening.
Well, also people can just deep fake you into an ad, right? Like, I mean, as soon as your commercial property becomes just like a cartoon approximation of you, like people can just pirate you into their fucking
we're going to be seeing
Chinese
Robert
dick
De
supplement
Niro.
ad.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in every movie for the next 300 years because like their genome has been sequenced now.
What this is like it's a repackaged version of a very old way of making a lot of money, right? Which is like licensing. Like so much of like the Trump empire is built on licensing when it comes to like buildings and when it comes to like tacit endorsements. Like the
His ass is insured for $1 million.
Like the ACN teleconference phone, right? Was like such a big part of like the Trump like fortune. And, you know,
Wait, is that Trump's Amstrad emailer? I didn't even know about this.
There's like loads of videos of it, but a lot of it was just like license. A lot of it was like, well, this license for Trump name, and like, you know, that's where kind of like the branding endorsement comes in. This is just like an updated version of licensing, and for celebrities, it's great because again, like as Nate said, like you don't have to be there, and like lots of celebrities just don't like doing any of like the fucking press anyway. So this is like a great way of like standing in, but. It's also, I don't know, I guess for them, like they're just trying to kind of build, they're trying to kind of like own rights to people, right? And it's kind of just this very stupid way of copywriting.
The Trump telephone can handle over 500 lines, which means that you can speak to almost every branch of McDonald's in the US simultaneously and find out once and for all where the hamburger is.
The terrible sci-fi movie that this has become is we are now living in Simone with Al Pacino before Al Pacino was himself turned into a digitized actor. It's great. Nobody saw that movie but me. But
what we are living in is it seems too like Baudrillard to like it seems too on the nose as a Baudrillard comparison.
Yeah, I love to send my simulacrum somewhere.
Yeah, and it's this thing where again where capital works through abstraction. You know, it works purely as the inducement to consume or make something, and the less you can have that at least for advertising, for capital, advertising works in abstraction as the inducement to consume something or the inducement to do something, and the more abstract it can be, the more efficient it can be, the better. So this is just essentially, as Hussein said, making celebrity endorsements slightly more efficient.
And slightly less authentic. Deaths of the real, baby.
Yeah, we are taking a blowtorch to the concept of the real.
Ontology.
Yes.
But also think about that though. I mean, like if your goal is to make lots of toy review videos with a small child, if there's no difference between the small child reviewing the toy video or doing the toy videos himself and a 3D rendered version or an animated version of him doing it, then you can make 20 reviews and get all the YouTube monetization off that, when normally you have the normal human physical constraints of making a kid work.
Do you remember Xbox's thing that they trialed where they had a virtual child who would talk to you, named Milo, actually? And like,
listen, it wasn't a proud point in my career.
But it worked about as well as you would think, because like it just gave off such intensely nonce vibes that I think they just canned the whole thing. Just because it was too weird to just have grown people just talking to like this weird fake child.
I've got to look this up now.
I mean, it's 100% real. A history of the British Parliament from 1600 to the present day.
It was called Milo. It's real. You should look it up. It looks really uncanny now. It kind of did then too.
So, but like, I think to bring this all together, you know, we are living through the death of the real. Everything is an abstraction.
I do remember this. No, sorry, Nate's just got it up on the screen.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah, I do. Because now, right, this is the whole thing. When I lived in Russia, people would always be like, "Oh, your name is Milo. Were you named after the dog from The Mask?" And I was like, always like, obviously not. Whereas what I should have been like was like, no, I was named after the fucking nonce cartoon from Xbox.
That's so Russian to be like, oh, you must have been named after this gigantic media property.
Oh my god!
Which we
so weird.
It looks like you.
It does look like
it looks remarkably like you.
It doesn't. I don't think it looks like Milo. I think it looks like
it's got the same pointy chin.
Go on the one where he's angry.
To bully Milo into making the Xbox Milo his Twitter avatar.
It looks like if Riley and Milo had a kid.
He's wearing an extremely American t-shirt. It's the kind of t-shirt you would only ever see an American child wear.
He's dressed like AJ Soprano.
What's the picture where he's like really angry?
Where's it?
One up.
He's in front of an American house, but it looks like it's in the Kyoto countryside.
Okay. That's like older version.
Okay. We are now finished talking about Project Milo.
I'm sorry to like totally derail.
We are now.
It's him being consumed by tentacles.
The Project Milo discussion is now coming to an end, please.
Oh, I don't think you can decide that, Riley. Oh God.
No, the Project Milo discussion comes to an end now, please. Thank you. Yes, you're not even my real mom. So, to bring this all together, 2 points. Number one, nothing is real. Everything is Project Milo now.
Yes.
Project Milo is here to tell you to, I don't know, buy Gucci.
Buy Gucci.
Also, Akash Nigam grew up in Silicon Valley with entrepreneurship in his blood. His father, Pavad
That sounds
Nigam,
unhealthy.
was the co-founder of medical website WebMD.
Oh, amazing.
So
he's,
that's why.
he's the heir to the hypochondria fortune.
Yeah.
So now a fake Kylie Jenner can endorse the fake colon cancer that you've convinced yourself you have at 3 a.m. having smoked 14 Juul pods.
How did this guy's dad make that much money off of a website that just tells me I'm going to die because my stomach hurts after I ate like 6 things of candy?
Anyway, this is entirely unsurprising to me that, of course, that's why this is the guy who's doing this business that, in all honesty, probably will be successful because it's doing something that, unfortunately, capital wants. It's just extraordinarily stupid. And this startup was brought to my attention by listener Opinion Haver. That's OPPINION Haver, spelled the normal way, 69. So Opinion Haver 69. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. If you do find startups like this, by the way, feel free to share them with me.
I love the idea that we'll have even better content curated by our fans. We'll just do shout outs for them. It's like, wow, that was a really deep article on the topic of the death of the real in modern advertising. Thank you, Bukaki Bukarin. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Trill Zinoviev sent us a great article. Thank you.
So we're moving on now to Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan was interviewed in City AM recently.
I'm gonna go back to Project Milo. That's a lot more fun.
Project Sadiq.
And oh lord,
the mayor
What
will
if
say
the mayor
whatever
of
you
London
want.
was a 3D rendered boy that you could tell to do things? He would have about as much authority as the actual London mayor.
well, that's a good episode title.
Yeah, that
Project
should be
Sadiq.
Labour's next candidate after Sadiq moves on from the mayoralty. Is just we're getting Project Milo back, and
Hell yeah.
you can just vote for this boy who you can tell to do things.
We're installing an animated swing in the fucking London Assembly.
So basically, Sadiq Khan was interviewed today on City AM about how he's going to be running for mayor, how he plans to govern, and so on. And he was quoted as saying, "When you see a big employer like Amazon paying a minuscule amount of tax in the UK, the government should close the loopholes and they should pay their fair share of tax in relation to revenues raised in this country." Now, like most things I say that start out sounding something reasonable, it would be great if the interview ended there.
Oh no, he's following the Spectator formula.
He's following the
Say the
Stephen A.
good thing.
Smith formula. He wants to address this issue.
Yes,
But
I think we've got to realize that we're a global city. We work in a global economy. So to unilaterally impose taxes in one country could have unintended consequences, making them move elsewhere.
No, we should just apply all of the taxes globally then, because if they're global companies, we should just have one global tax.
The globe tax for using the globe.
You
The
said
flat earthers
You
wouldn't
can't
pay
like
it, though.
tax anywhere. Like,
If you don't believe in Australia, you don't have to pay the globe tax.
He is saying this in the context of planning on asking Sajid Javid to not impose a unilateral tax on tech giants operating in the UK.
What the fuck is this? What the fuck kind of cuck shit is this? The fucking Labour mayor of London, like basically one of the few fucking positions the Labour Party still holds, telling the Tories to be more Tory. Oh, you've been considering imposing a tax on big business. I, the Labour mayor of London, suggest that you might be being not friendly enough to business. You, Sajid Javid, the guy who did the fucking economic crisis, like you are now being too left-wing for my Sadiq Khan, the Labour mayor of London's liking. Yes, this is a very normal news story, which I'm enjoying a great deal.
you know
Milo,
how
correct.
bad you have to be to make me miss insane Ken Livingstone? The man who most recently got famous for getting his foot stuck in a tube door because he like expected it to yield to him like he was King fucking Canute of trains.
Ken Livingstone is like, what if the guy from Up was like really dark?
yeah, Ken Livingstone, whenever there's like a bad news story that the stories want to bury, they're just like, get an interview with Ken Livingstone. We know he'll do something anti-Semitic. He always does.
Say the line, Ken.
He sucks so much, and yet, how are his policies better than this?
Yeah, he sucked really bad, but he also made them build the overground. Like, what the fuck?
So, Khan admits that when he first walked into City Hall, he, quote, didn't fully understand the contribution made by business to all walks of life.
Did he say this with like a laser sight, just like dancing on his forehead?
Is he being written by Matt Hancock?
Kind of.
Can't say that about business.
This is an audio platform, so you can't see it, but I'm stretching my arms as wide as I can to simulate like I'm hugging the biggest tree in the world, like the fucking gigantic redwood, and now I'm jacking it off because that's the fucking motion this makes me want to perform when I hear this idiot say this shit. Like, British business tax and the loopholes it allows means that like Amazon pays like £600,000 a year in taxes on like tens of billions of pounds of revenue in the UK alone. Like,
Yes.
it's absurd.
Yes,
And I mean-
and what British business, like, as he correctly identified mere paragraphs ago, a lot of these are just global businesses that have no British component other than occasionally employing people here and not paying tax. All of the, like, distinctly British businesses is just Jim Twat in Oxfordshire who runs a shed making gollywogs.
And Mike Ashley, who like was. Do you remember? I fucking love Mike Ashley. That time he went when there was that scandal over him like not paying his workers enough to like afford bread, and he like went to one of his factories or warehouses or something to go around there and be like, no, it's all right. Don't worry, I'm here to sort it out. And they have like a metal detector at the entrance, and he had to empty his pockets, and he just started pulling wads of £50 notes out of his pockets, and it's like. Mike, mate, come on. Head in the fucking game. At no point. Hire a PR person, even a stupid one. Like,
Project Mike Ashley has been a widely reviled decision.
I just remember when we had to buy the travel case for the big mixer, we couldn't find one made for it on Amazon or on any of the other like websites. You could get one from Yamaha themselves, but it was like an absurd amount of money, and you basically couldn't get it in Britain.
And it was also a moped for some reason.
I would have had to have ordered it like to an address in the US and had them forward it, and I'm sure I would have gotten hit with fucking, importation tax. But we found a business in like Scotland that made travel cases, like soft travel cases, and they made it for us, and it was like super really great service. And I was just like, damn, it's weird to deal with an actual British business that A, that's good at their job, but B, that like is in Britain, that just does stuff in Britain, because invariably whenever you buy, it's just like it's some weird international conglomerate, or it's like it's like crazy Ahab's fucking tinkering shop.
Anyway, long story short, we deep fried our mixer.
I don't remember whether we talked about this on a previous episode of this, or well, there's your problem. I'm getting podcast blurring, but the one company that still makes leaded gasoline is in fucking like.
It was this.
It was
here.
this. It was this.
us.
Yeah. It's in Hampshire. Yeah, we looked it up for an episode.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, going back to this, we say that he is essentially saying that he sees his role as the Labour leader of London to be the mayor for capital, because he's seen the Tories step out, or at least step into a different kind of role. He's the mayor of cosmopolitanized capital, whereas the Tories seem to be what the government of financialized, directly extractive, like warehouse owner
Own
capital.
the Belgians at paintball capital. Yeah.
So it's what we have here is we have a Labour mayor of London who seems to be promising to who is his many for whom he is governing the many shareholders of Facebook.
Pretty
I don't know.
much. Yeah.
And also, I would say too that he was never particularly interested in supporting the Labour left, and everything he's done since the election, to include doing another interview where he said that Labour didn't deserve to win, doesn't make me feel as though he's worth going door knocking and putting up with talking to actual fucking British people, knocking on their doors at random.
But I feel like one of the things that I like about Rebecca Long Bailey, and it's like I have mixed feelings, and I know we're kind of dumb for even talking about this, is a commitment to like open reselection, because it's impossibly difficult to get someone out of a position of power in the Labour Party, whatever bullshit they come up with. Absolutely anything, whether it's this, whether it's Joanne Lamont being like, trans people are a kind of orc who are made in the birthing pits and then have to kill a man.
Project Trans.
I think like Riley hits it on the head though when it comes to like Sadiq Khan, because this is very like, this isn't just a case of like a London mayor who's become very close to business in a way that's like inevitable when you like sort of when you're like a mayor of a big city. Like we've seen that with like Bill de Blasio, right? And I'm sure like you know more.
He's become very close to pretending to be Italian.
I mean, all I remember of Bill de Blasio is that when he was first like elected, or like in the run up, they were kind of like, oh, he's like this very progressive, kind of very leftist guy.
Yeah, he talked about his son Dante and like him being black and like the risks associated with police violence towards him. and then like the NYPD owned
Right.
him.
Right. And then when I was like in New York like last year, like all that was kind of really being said was that like he's just like a jackass who just
Also, I mean,
warms
something I
up
would point
to-
out about New York City, though, that I think bears mention is that similarly to what you were describing, what Milo was describing about how hard it is to dislodge people, Bill de Blasio won re-election to mayor with something like 25% or less turnout for the entire city. And of course, there's a split vote between like 8 different candidates. We have a similar problem that basically, when I lived there, candidates run unopposed. There's a closed primary. It's super restrictive. They make voting really hard. And it's one of these situations where people assume because it's this big cosmopolitan city that things are A, competent, and B, transparent. And they're not at all. Like, it's the worst kind of machine politics. It's interesting to me because, and we may not need to go into the full details on this, but the London mayor office is a relatively new creation.
Yeah, Ken Livingstone was the first
London mayor because they basically, under Thatcher, the Greater London Council became really left-wing and activist, and so they just cut out all of its power. And so what Sadiq Khan can do as mayor of London is relatively limited because really when you get down to it...
More like Sadiq Khan,
Yeah,
am I right?
TFL, it's largely TFL and policing.
But
because everything else is the
flip side of
boroughs
that-
and their councils, yeah.
But the flip side of that is that because it was Ken Livingstone's baby, it's like designed as this kind of siege fortress against whatever dumb shit Ken Livingstone said recently. And so that still holds good. There's still a
Why
giant
does this
parapet
baby keep
there.
talking about the state of Israel?
I think the point I was trying to make was that like I think especially now that like the Brexit lines are kind of fully established, like Sadiq Khan's like play is going to be that I want to reach out to like this imagined kind of cosmopolitan like group of Londoners who are much more aligned to like the Liz Truss view of the world than they are like anything else.
Did you see the TFL things that went up on all of the like train clocks and everything? That's like London is always open. It's sandwiched in between. If you see anyone suspicious, call the police to shoot them.
If you see anybody begging, make sure you tell us so we can call the cops. Also, don't give the money. Give it to
Whitechapel
the
Mission or
Whitechapel
whatever it's
Mission.
called.
Yeah. Which I mean, I'm sure the Whitechapel Mission does good work, but come on, man. Like,
Well,
what the
it's
fuck?
honestly also like on that topic. Yeah, it's like yes, London. Like Sadiq Khan is saying, yes, London is open in a very particular way. To very like to either upper middle class, like middle class or upper middle class people who are going to still come here from all 4 corners of the world to like work in banking.
Yeah,
and then it's also
consume our expensive coffee.
Yeah, it's open to the affluent and the very rich, basically.
I mean,
like that is the extent of his cosmopolitanism, as it is shown by this particular quote.
Such a fucking pay-to-win MMO.
Well, I mean, I live in Southwark Council, right? And I mean, it's a Labour council. Neil Kinnock voice, a Labour council, and they're fucking demolishing council housing left and right to let luxury developers build shit.
Haringey, same thing.
Yeah, and just do a fucking 20% pour doors kind of thing. And it's like every time I go running in Burgess Park, I see these massive fucking estates built in the 60s that like probably aren't that well built, but could at least be refurbished or at least just held on to given the housing crisis in the city. And there's no lights on because they're all fucking being demolished.
Those houses actually tend to be very well built. And they're being replaced with stuff that will personally enrich Jeff Fairburn because he cuts corners.
I will say some of it is well built and some of it is
a lot of it is
poorly
well built. A lot of it's poorly maintained.
True, yeah, but also if I remember correctly, one of the problems is some of them is that, and I mean like this is a niche interest, but some of them are built with this kind of like slab construction that's incredibly dangerous because if, for example, you have a gas line explosion or something like that, it'll blow out the whole facade of a building.
Oh, so
like they are not.
Nate turning this into an episode of Well, There's Your Problem about the Ronan Point collapse.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong.
Literally blowing out the back walls of the housing crisis.
The first place I lived here in the United Kingdom was an old council estate, and its problem was that it was poorly maintained. It was actually like quite decently built and very sturdy, especially compared to some of the fucking shit around here.
And the shit they replace it with,
is shoddy as hell.
Is shoddy as hell, but it's very sort of veneered, and it always has CGI designs of
it looks like a
couples walking down a sort of unlabeled shopping street.
Would you like to live in something that looks like 20 Nandos stacked on top of each other?
But this is, and here's, I'm going to go back to this article where it says that he's one of the, this is from the article itself, one of the most high-profile clashes has been with the U.S. tech giant Uber. And as chair of TFL, Khan enthusiastically supports the regulator's decision to revoke Uber's license, which sounds like something a Labour mayor should do in the case of a a tech monopolist trying to like exploit people's like precarity to draw excess profits out of them.
And maybe a detail to point in here is that when Uber started up in London, it was paying salaries or paying wages to drivers that were higher in aggregate than what you would make as a black cab driver, which is like a super guild protected job. But now they have so many drivers on the roads and they've lowered the fares for the cuts they get. So Uber drivers are oftentimes just like in the hock for their fucking car leases. And it's absolutely like
guild of black cab drivers and their symbol of the crossed gollywogs. Can I just quickly chip in here with something that happened to me last night, which is that I feel like in this way, Sadiq Khan is like the perfect mayor of London because he sort of encapsulates how pointless and meaningless most of the things that happen in London are. Like, because, for example, now my brain is obviously ruined by this podcast. So whenever someone tells me that their friend has started a startup, I'm always like, oh God, what the fuck is it now? Because it's never something good, right? So last night I met this person, friend of a friend. She was very nice, and she started telling me about a friend of hers who has started a startup. And I'm like, please don't tell me about it. I don't want to know. I don't want to have to sit here and be like
so many times before.
Yeah. And then it turns out this guy is starting a startup, which I'm sure is very well meaning, but it's a startup where it's an app. Good start. Where you can sponsor an individual homeless person through an app to get job skills training. To get a job, like sponsoring a fucking goat at the zoo.
What's it
I
called?
love to have like a contactless.
I don't know.
What's it
What's it called?
Swipe my phone over the homeless person.
I love to get letters every week in like crayon telling me how the homeless person is doing.
As though that's the problem.
So they basically model it on the same way that like middle class white people sponsor a kid in like Ethiopia.
Yeah.
Yes. Quite.
And it's also like, do you know what would be a real solution to homelessness? Having housing you could put people into. Do you know what they're not doing? Building that.
So back to the Uber thing. Some, and this is from the article again, may see the Uber tussle as proof of an anti-business strand running through Khan's approach to managing life in the capital, but he insists it's the opposite. When I became mayor, he says, there was a monopoly, but I believe in the market economy, and now we have not one, but a number of different operators. The market is working.
Yeah, you can get an Uber and a Lyft. And
I love that we have like 12 different competing cab operators, all of which are going bust or going gangbusters all at different times. So I never know who's where. There's no joined up network for anything. It's all still pretty expensive, but they're all also trying to constantly undercut each other on price because some are venture capital subsidized and others aren't, so that eventually they can get into some kind of monopoly position. I love not knowing how I'm going to get somewhere 6 months from now because there are a bunch of competing bits of JavaScript on the front end of a bunch of Amazon Web Service servers that are like paying people different kinds of poverty wage. We could just have a functioning bus service.
I love to work for like all of these in different ways at the same time and like just be running all of these different apps on my phone while I run my shitty car into the ground, getting paid in Amazon script. That's amazing.
I mean, legitimately, if they just paid their taxes, if the UK wasn't constantly cutting its corporate tax rate and granting exemptions to these massive companies, like as you said, Riley, they could improve. They could probably scrap all the insane diesel buses that make London have the absolute worst fucking air pollution in Europe. They could probably expand TfL massively. They could do more overground. They could do more buses,
more 24-hour
buses. They could do more. Expand the tube more. They could. They're going to have to do like a north-south running Crossrail at some point anyway. Like they could make it so the Northern Line isn't basically like literally if it was animals instead of people, it would be violating fucking animal welfare codes. Like there are things that they could do, but instead, invariably, like we wind up with people like Sadiq Khan who believe in the market, and it's like we can present all these examples of how it's not sufficient, and the response you get is like, oh, so you're a Tory then? And it's like, no, we just want better, and we would like to be able to elect a Labour mayor of London who doesn't get on TV and say Labour deserves to lose. Someone who actually wants to improve the material conditions of people working in the city, but instead it's just sort of like he's like, they say I'm anti-business, but actually I'm so pro-business. I just don't want bad actors. I just want to get rid of the bad business apples. And it's like fucking Mayor Elizabeth Warren.
Yes.
I want all my films to feature Lawrence Fox.
Yeah,
I've convinced Sadiq Khan
Lads.
to build a new tube line that's a really like Baroque shape that spells out controls on immigration.
Do you want to know why we're going to lose the next election? We're going to lose the next election because we've just done 40 minutes of metropolitan elitism, and none of you have been talking about towns at all.
I said I wanted a functioning bus service. You're wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say also, to be honest with you, having taken buses in other cities while campaigning, yeah, it's really grim. It makes you miss London, the problems with London's transport network notwithstanding, because like in Crawley, for example, all the tickers that tell you when the bus arrives, it was like a flashback to New York City where like none of that means anything. None of those tickers have any correspondence with when the train's actually arriving.
Yeah, but now they'll tell you that Crawley is open always and forever.
Crawley is European, damn it.
One thing to also to bear in mind, because I grew up in like one of the kind of the outside of the city, and we had like one bus service, an Arriva bus service, which kind of covers a lot of towns and villages in this country, which like for the worst kind of London bus is like 1,000,000 times better than the Arriva, like any sort of Arriva service. But every time I used to go to like council meetings, or you go to like parish meetings or whatever, and you say, but look, like the one bit of transport that takes us out of this like stupid place that like prevents us from having to like buy cars and everything costs like £6 one way, right? And they'll kind of say that, well, in London, like these things don't work either. So imagine what it's like when we're kind of so what right. So like if like the most well-endowed city like isn't taking active steps to show that like there are better things that we can do, or like there are different ways in which we can arrange things, then it also kind of it stops like towns and villages from doing the same thing.
And I also got to say this because compared to New York City, London's bus service and transport network in general are like it's light years ahead. It's so much better. And I guess I don't say that to let London off the hook, but rather to say it can get so much worse. And if it gets worse, it's going to get worse under the supervision of an ostensibly left-leaning or center-left leadership, because none of these people actually care. They're so distanced from it. And if this person, even in a situation where you would think nominally in an incredibly pro-labor region like London, they would have a reason to support these things that have polled very popularly. Instead, he's turning around and trying to make himself like the Howard Schultz of the Labor Party. Like, if that's where his priorities lie, what's going to happen when there's an actual challenge?
Why couldn't you have something more like Liverpool, where the mayor Joe Anderson is just like, "Fuck you, no more austerity."
Yeah, that guy rules.
We're just not going to do it.
Because the channel through which austerity flows is through, for most people, is through cuts to local services. So this mayor basically saying, "Fuck you, I won't do it." I mean, we'll see how that plays out. I mean, I remember Liverpool did something kind of similar once in the 1980s.
And it led to Neil Kinnock's a Labour council.
So, I mean, we'll see how that goes.
But, I mean, particularly in the South, there's a lot of like very like smug middle class politicking, and I think you see it a bit with what the Greens do in Brighton, which is where they're like they make these gestures towards progress. Like the Greens are like, oh well, you know, we envisage a carless society, but they don't do anything to achieve it other than just like making it impossible to park in Brighton. It's like, well done, you've just fucked over people who need to drive. Like you've not provided an alternative, and that's the same shit they do in London, where they're like, okay, we're going to do these things to like make it harder to drive in London, but we're not going to like build a fucking tube line. Like, fuck you if you live in all of South London.
Well, what we're going to do is we're going to let the market fix it, which is clearly what Sadiq Khan wants to do.
Which is why it costs £705 million per mile of track in central London.
Because when we let the market fix it, then because where public transport is completely privatized, like Hussein was saying, is in towns. If you get Sadiq's argument that the market is basically good and the market should be applied to public transport, then you know what you're going to have is that we're going to have a London where the transport is arranged like more like where Hussein comes from.
Or more like the MTA. We're just going to have like leaking tube tunnels.
And also, I mean, somebody point out that
damn, I hate when my tube leaks.
Is that it's ridiculous how much money they charge, how much we wind up paying for all these contractors and subcontractors and such to do construction. But just bear in mind that in New York City, it's £705 million per kilometer would be an amazing bargain, considering that when they were building the Second Avenue subway in New York City, it wound up averaging something along the lines of £3 billion per kilometer. It was absurd. It was absolutely absurd.
Every British public infrastructure project is just that thing with the Chinese hitman. Every contractor hires another contractor until eventually the government is paying $10 million, but there's some guy who's being paid $5 to do it who has no experience and doesn't speak English.
So I'd like to move us on nonetheless.
Do the exact same segment again about Wigan for balance.
But this is These are the priorities of Sadiq Khan, someone who has decided upon which side of the toast the butter is.
I still like my laser sight idea. I like that there's a parallax view guy up on a rooftop somewhere, and he's
making
just like,
him be centrist.
Yes, I am very friendly to business. You may think I'm being unfriendly to business, but in fact, I'm being, if anything, more friendly to it.
So all the hitmen that are chasing him are Jason Statham body doubles that look like Jeff Bezos.
Yes,
they're all Chinese guys being paid less than the living wage.
So, moving on to the Remain Mujahideen, which the Remain Mujahideen, of course, is coming out to protest the day upon which we're recording that Brexit happens. They're flooding the streets. It's like the Wooferendum times a million. People's Vote has organized multiple different protest groups. It's like the Gilets jaunes in here.
Yeah, I just love to see a bunch of Remainers in the back of a Toyota pickup truck that has a Soviet anti-aircraft gun in there for some reason.
No, so the UK does leave the European Union today on the day we are talking to one another, and several days before we're talking to you.
And Big Ben isn't gonna bong for Brexit because we didn't bung enough Bob for Big Ben to bong for Brexit.
No, Britain is doomed. Like, Britain is genuinely, like, in some ways, I wish they had raised enough money for Big Ben to fucking bong, because as stupid as it is, it would have suggested that the UK government at least wasn't a total pathetic joke, that, like, the UK government could at least muster £500,000 for their stupid political gesture, and they fucking can't. They can't even do that. Like, I mean, like, I have this theory now that, like, Britain has become the dumbest country on earth because we have to forget that we were once the most evil country on earth. Otherwise, we'd have to start asking questions about how we got too incompetent to be evil anymore. We've stopped being evil, not really because we don't want to be, but just because we no longer have the resources to do it on any meaningful scale.
It's just like embarrassing evil now.
What I'm focusing on here is that Our Future, Our Choice, Open Britain, People's Vote, Best for Britain, all of these groups that I usually refer to as Jabhat al-Remain, they've just, now that Brexit's happening, they've packed up their political projects and they've gone home. They seem to be nothing. They seem to be saying nothing, doing nothing beyond writing some op-eds in the New European. They seem
back to Barnes.
Wait, jacked goofy. What do you have to say on this podcast? gosh, guys, it's almost like this was the thing to fuck over Labour in the first place.
You know what the funny thing is? The really bleakly Joker moment is that in the aftermath of the election and us getting owned, somebody anonymously, a Labour source, senior Labour source, gave a quote to the press that said that Ash Sarkar had gone to Labour HQ that night, seen the results, and walked out. She wasn't there, and she could prove it. But the line was, these people have literally joined our party, wrecked it, and walked away. And that's exactly what happened with People's Vote. They just... Labour went from leading in the polls to being several points under in the polls and then getting owned, and all of these former Lib Dem PPCs and so on are just gonna walk away dusting their hands theatrically and saying, well, job done. We tried our best.
The thing for me is that it's basically like these people, they just want to go to custard tart Valhalla, right? Like, it's like, it doesn't, the actually remaining in the EU isn't what matters to them. It's that they made a big, bold, big boy stand against it. And now they get to keep their honor intact and clutch their pearls. They're like, oh no, I'm being torn asunder from my true love, Angela
Not only
Merkel.
that, but they also managed to destroy Corbynism as a political project.
Yes.
So that's a nice bonus for them.
Damn, but now they're going to have to eat jam tarts, and who'll be making that jam?
Well, so the thing is, and that's also not to say that every, marcher on the, anti-Brexit marches was just being well, time to destroy Corbynism as a political project.
That's the really sad thing.
So people at Lynn _836735437 FBPE or whatever
profile picture is a dog.
Yeah, they're an unfocused out of center picture of a dog. Retweet if you support.
Yeah.
Retweet if you think the UK should be part of Luxembourg or whatever.
Yeah.
These people they're just passionately cosmopolitan. They just like being in the EU. They don't like the idea of right-wing backsliding. They don't want this change. But what happened is that like their actual passion for this political project was harnessed by cynical chancellors like Alistair Campbell. And now that Brexit is gone, Brexit is happening. It's coming and going. All these bottom feeders that ran all of these like astroturfed organizations, like Our Future, Our Choice, or People's Vote, or whatever, they're just gone. Their political project is no longer there, and that's it. That's it.
I think the other thing to note is that tonight, when we leave the EU at 11 p.m., not midnight for some reason, there will be genuine sorrow from people who, aside from having like some personal connection, like worrying that they might get kicked out of the country, genuinely have developed this emotional attachment to European institutions, have just been taken for a ride by these absolute dickheads, and who are just now leaving them in the lurch.
I think what's interesting, I was going to say, like, what's interesting is like seeing in like the aftermath of all this, because there has been like a minor reckoning where I've seen like people who were kind of very pro EU, and for them like the kind of passion issue was like, we need to stay in the European Union, or at the very least we need to have a relationship that kind of like explores a more fluid continuation.
Yeah, to have that European identity.
Well, and it can mean like several things, but basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that like they've all of a sudden sort of been drawn into this kind of political fight that I don't think that they really wanted to be in, where it was one which was like reckoning with like these very vague ideas of like what Corbynism is, to kind of like make these false choices between like, there's a line that goes around in terms of like a lot of FBP people in terms of if you voted for Corbyn, then you're complicit, but they're not really sure like what complicity actually means. And if you bring this up with anyone, they're kind of, it's to say, well, okay, if you kind of contributed in Labour losing, because they were the only people who could have won in 2008. So there was no other.
Owen Smith would have won a landslide. We all know this.
There was no other outcome. So like, by not doing that, were you also complicit in like the Tories winning? Were you complicit in Brexit? Were you complicit in these new things now where like Sajid Javid is looking to kind of restart austerity using kind of other words? But they won't answer those things, or they'll kind of like, they'll be very hesitant to answer those things. Well, so there hasn't really been a lot of clarity.
Yeah.
And I think there is a growing number of people who have sort of realized that the pro-EU movement there was a lot of like bad intentions in there.
Yeah, because they don't even have a point when they say that like people who voted for Corbyn are complicit. That's not even correct, because like Corbyn was the person who came closest to threading the needle of like keeping the Brexiteers on board.
They still got him to push for a second referendum, and
exactly, and that's what made it worse, right? Whereas like the Paul Embury people are wrong, but they at least have a point, which is that like you might have kept some of those people on board if you'd pressed the racism button. And they are probably right. It's not worth doing.
Don't cry because you got what you fucking wanted.
You got a second referendum, and look at the result. There it is.
And that's the other thing. I think I'd like to emphasize this thing about complicity that Hussein's bringing up, right? This is also to do with their assumption that Brexit is somehow the fault of the left not campaigning for it in the right, proper, liberal way. Because there is this widespread liberal belief, which is very strange next to their stated values of persuasion and compromise and rational debate, that the entire right is this unpersuadable lumpen mass, and you have to just react to it. And you always have to manage it and console it and sort of try to mollify it and try to just keep it from its worst excesses, and that you can't sort of try to outplay it. You can't outflank it. You can't try to beat it. You can't protest against it. It can never be your political enemy. It's just this thing that exists that needs to be managed. And because Corbyn didn't campaign for Remain enough, because we didn't come around to the second referendum quickly enough, because when you did come around to the second referendum, you didn't say which side you would campaign on. You never joined up with us entirely, and you never joined up with our understanding, which is, well, we have to mollify the right. Join us. So we can, and you're the only lever we can pull, the left. We can't pull on this lever, the right.
But also, I mean, I would point out too that, I mean, you look at some of the just incredibly disingenuous, bad faith things that have happened. When you think about people like Chukwuemeka saying in 2016, after the referendum, or I think maybe before the referendum, like, well, if we can get rid of freedom of movement, then that's worth leaving the single market. And then him being like, oh no, Jeremy Corbyn's shocking lack of leadership and inability to oppose Brexit is why I have to start my own shitty party and then join the Lib Dems. Like, none of that all gets memory hold. And the narrative, I mean, I saw today is people being like, well, I blame Corbyn and the goddamn lefties, and it's so transparently false. I mean, I think that if you had allowed, I was opposed to Brexit. I certainly would have preferred the softest of soft Brexit to whatever fucking nightmare shithole we're going to get. But I think that if you had gone with what happened in 2017 and you basically said the referendum result has to be respected and we're gonna find a compromise solution that is still Brexit, even if it's soft Brexit, you might have done better. But I mean, I don't think you can look at what happened in the general election and say, oh no, we just didn't remain hard enough. I just don't think that's true.
Yeah, but
and
that's
I
where
agree.
we are.
Exactly. And I think the
Remain
point,
3, custard tart grift.
and I think the point that you made there, Riley, that all of these organizations, literally, they shut down. They didn't even shut down now. They shut down before the election, like, for example, People's Vote, when Labour adopted its position, because otherwise they would have been put in the awkward situation of having to endorse Jeremy Corbyn. And their whole, modus operandi was finding a wedge with which to split support for the Labour Party.
The one that didn't was Best for Britain, which we talked about before.
Oh, fuck's sake. Yeah. Which ran a disinformation campaign to scuttle Labour.
Yes, and which probably lost us Kensington.
So, in conclusion, the capitulating to these chancers was, in retrospect, a very bad idea, and the left is going to be loath to do it again, but they're going to try, and they're going to take over the Lib Dems and run a spoiler party again later.
And meanwhile, on the right, because Riley, I was struck by something you said about Brexit coming and going. We're just engaged in like a Trotskyite permanent revolution. We just have Brexit now cannot end. We have to be Brexiting forever. So that's going to be fun. It's just, this psychosis is never going to stop. However many election cycles into the future, we'll be fucking still relitigating it.
It's just a maxim that we're all used to, which is that this year is just going to be another version of 2016.
Yes.
Like we're going to be living in a 2016 cycle that is never going to end.
I actually don't think I agree. I think there are some people who are. But I think if
those people run the news.
Yeah, but no, hold on. I don't think we are, because like Alistair Campbell, he's shut down his organization. The government is talking about doing things now that
he's busy doing a podcast with his failed daughter
that are going to be not related to Brexit, even though they might be related to Brexit. In fact, they'll be framed as not related to Brexit.
My
trade
prediction
negotiations.
is that those will be totally subsumed by it,
yeah.
and that anything coming from the left or even from liberals will just be framed as bloody Ramonas trying to like undo Brexit and talk down Britain. I feel like the only prism left for understanding politics. Dominic Cummings has somehow Thucydides, Sun Tzu, Machiavelli'd all of us, and we're just stuck with this.
Well, hey, I can't wait until he makes like a thousand Theranoses bloom in Dominic Cummings' vision.
But I mean, I guess the point that I would make at the end of it is Labour was in an impossible situation because a significant number of its membership, the majority of its membership, is pro-Remain. These organizations had tons of funding from shitheads who were both rich and opposed to Corbyn, but also nominally Labour adjacent. And they took a gamble. It lost massively. It sucked. The people who said this was wrong were correct. Fair play to them. They were wrong. They were right, and we were wrong. I would say we never really took a hard position on it, but I think that if every single member of this podcast were to be asked, like, if you could just snap your fingers and decide, I would assume all would have said remain in the European Union.
Sure.
And they lost. And the problem is, I don't know how you can go back and play that any differently, because I really do believe that had they stuck to the 2017 line, out of just sort of dogged determination from the leader's office, then I think you would have seen an even bigger scuttling of the Labour vote taken by the Greens and the Lib Dems. I think we were fucked either way, and it sucks really bad. It's really awful.
Yeah, It's just, do you want to lose on second referendum or like Remain and Reform or whatever? Either way.
I think the point I'm trying to make here is that all of these shitheads are gone now. They have they appear to have just given up, because politics for them is just a debate.
No, but they haven't, though. That's the
They'll
thing.
be back in great numbers.
The point of this project is to destroy the left. It doesn't matter whether or not it's based on a real issue. The point of this project is they have now determined, they feel as though they have this moral high ground, and now that Labour has lost, Labour can't argue like it did after 2017, saying, shut up, we've got something that works. We don't have that argument anymore. So what's going to happen is they're going to be like, oh, well, root and branch, we have to undo this menace. The menace isn't Brexit. The menace is the left.
Yeah, but what I mean is that the Remain project is now gone. These people aren't gone, but
you think the
Remain
Red Roar is
project
going
done.
anywhere? I mean, fuck's sake.
No, but
that shit's all going to stay.
I was going to make this point, which is like the lasting legacy of this is that in the past few years, what we've had is an eruption of like a new punditry, right? And like a new kind of media economy system and it wasn't. We shouldn't kind of like the irony of like the BBC slashing like tons of service staff and like producers and stuff shouldn't be lost in us. Like the media landscape has changed, and like the people who have benefited from the last few years and will continue to benefit are these new generation of like reactionary pundits who have all been fueled by the ongoing like Brexit wars. And again, like the people who have succeeded even in that have been the people who have benefited from the destruction of the left, right?
Well,
What's Mr. Clacton Brexit going to do with his name now?
I think that does speak to my point, which is that like Brexit is the only thing left now, and I think
culture wars haven't died, right?
Yeah,
the culture wars out of Brexit haven't died. It's just going to rebrand in another.
Yeah, I think we misstated when we were joking about the Brexit cast just becoming the newscast. I think that like the Brexit cast has just consumed the newscast, right? It's just like the news will now just continue as like an avenue of Brexit. It is a continuation of Brexit by other means, and it has to because it suits people like Dominic Cummings, and it suits people on the like liberal wing who want a stick to beat the left with for it to continue on this sort of culture war basis. The next thing will probably be Scottish independence, and then God knows what after that, but it's all going to be Brexit by another name.
Really excited for this new album from Huey Lewis and the Brexit.
So I want to move us on to something just a little bit nice that we can finish off with.
Nice.
A little bit fun, a little bit light.
It's the number 69, folks.
And it is, God damn it. And this is a vintage Rafael Behr column. Now, those of you who listened to our bonus episode where we read his 2006 Shoes column know that before 2010, Rafael Behr's writing was odd.
Shoeless.
He
didn't wear shoes when he was writing, and now he does.
It was pretty odd recently. Like his most recent column was, "I had a heart attack, and I think it made me like get over Brexit."
But at least like that, he sort of knows what he's writing about now. In the pre-2010 era, Rafael Behr has a very interesting need to produce columns. But he never quite knows about what.
Yeah. Here at Chateau Trash de Fuge, we grow our Rafael Behr columns in the finest microclimate to give them the fresh finish on the palate that you're used to.
A rare vintage up from the cellars for
I
our delectation.
I have gone into the cellars of The Guardian, and I have pulled out a 2009 Rafael Behr column. I've blown the dust off it.
Weird microclimate, that.
And I'm opening up the cork, and I'm ready to deliver to you A Modest Proposal at Alton Towers.
Episode title.
Honestly, like, fuck. This sounds like a Famous Five book.
What if we simply ate the children?
Ladies' hemlines are supposed to fall in a recession.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
A little
what
bit
a
of Salissa energy to start us off.
And so it makes sense that gentlemen's pants should get baggier.
Excuse me?
What?
No, it doesn't. That first sentence is two things that don't...
Why is he using pants in the American sense? Or at least I hope he's using it in the American sense.
No, he is not.
Oh, no.
It's an austerity thing. Just as the culture of an economic boom is brazen and flashy, lean times demand sobriety and discretion.
My two sisters.
Sure enough, last week, Alton Towers announced a ban on skimpy swimming trunks.
Oh, no. No, this isn't what the whole article is about, is it?
Wait. Alton Towers is like a theme park, right?
Yeah.
A dismal
It's like
shit
Six
British
Flags
theme
for our
park.
American listeners. Yeah.
The small, brief style is not appropriate for a family venue, according to the Pleasure Park headquarters, which is disappointingly not called Alton Towers Towers.
Stop calling it a pleasure park when you're talking about kids swimming trunks.
No, it's for adults. It's about adult men.
You could just fucking write anything in a newspaper in 2009. Johann Hari was still working. Fucking like Liz Smith was writing about how she hates her children and stuff.
Yeah.
Any bullshit you wanted, you could get published.
The implication is that, by the way, I'm not removing a single word from this, I have taken every single word Rafael Behr has said, and I'm presenting it back to you. The implication is that public sensibilities are affronted by clothing that hugs the outline of male genitals.
What?
Normal.
A man in bulging briefs invades the space of other customers in a way his Bermuda-shorted counterpart does not.
So people keep telling me on the Victoria line, sir, please stop wearing that man thong.
We were just all... Wait, 2009, had the Borat, like, mankini been invented yet?
Oh, yeah, that was 2007, or even 2006, Borat.
Yeah. But, say outraged Speedo Packers, the offense cannot be located in the trunks themselves.
Speedo Packers is a homophobic slur from the olden times.
It has to happen. It has to happen in the prudish mind of the offended party. And what authority does he or she claim to dictate what fellow bathers wear?
Who hurt Raphael Behr? What happened? What did someone say to him at Alton Towers?
Why is he writing so much strange columns about shoes and Speedos?
After like 2012 or 2015 even, this would be a thing about, like, I don't know, how the trans women orcs are coming into the bathing spaces, or something about the burkini. But instead, this is just
Alice, that comes up.
Oh, does it? Well, you've just defeated my entire point, which is this is a harmless, nice little column about how weird it is that you can just see someone's dick.
I just want to see some dick outline. No, he's in favor of dick outline, is my understanding.
Yeah, he wants to see that dick print.
Exactly, yeah.
Yo, show me that dick, though.
Yeah, just a hint of dick to keep it interesting.
At first glance, this is a classic conflict of positive and negative rights. One person's freedom to wear what they choose competing with another's freedom from indecent exposure. It should therefore be possible to resolve the dilemma on liberal terms using John Stuart Mill's quote-unquote harm principle.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm imagining him like me being thrown out of the park office at Alton Towers as I read to them from John Stuart Mill.
This is a man,
they shout at me to please put my clothes on.
This is a man who's forgot he had a deadline.
Applying Marxist dialectics to whether or not we should be able to see your dick is something we would do.
Should we all have to wear huge linen coats to the swimming hole?
This is absolutely something I'm going to pitch in my like editors meeting like in 10 minutes because I have zero idea.
Does the sight of a male member bound in lycra really cause enough injury to justify curtailing the civil liberties of its owner?
Bound there, dude.
Probably not.
Curtail the civil liberties.
And then Rafael Behr says, probably not. Speedos 1, Alton Towers 0.
Okay.
I love non-league football.
In France, in France, they've got the whole issue covered, or rather uncovered, by Republican doctrine. Everyone has to wear proper swimming costumes, which means Speedos for men. Ostensibly, this is for public health reasons. Shorts might be worn around all day and so import bacteria to the water. But it also reflects a certain Gallic affection for uniformity. The rule was cited in a case last week of a woman expelled from a municipal pool near Paris for wearing a burkini, a head-to-toe costume designed to allow Muslim women to swim piously.
So that's all he says about it.
I hate it. I hate it when I go to the French swimming hole and Jean-Luc Dupedophilie has to check under my foreskin to make sure everything's all right.
So the individuals.
This is what I mean about it being a more innocent time, though, right? He just mentions this in passing.
Yeah.
There's no like detail. There's no political point to that. It's just like noting a thing that happened in France where they have racism, which we haven't got yet.
It's like, cool. So the
Charlie Hebdo cartoon of Muslims with cartoonishly huge dicks bulging through their speedos.
So the individual's right to conceal his or her body from public view is subordinate to the collective right to a clean pool in secular society. Speedos 2, Alton Towers 0.
What? So wait, he just... I take it back. He, in a sort of harmless noting fashion, just advocated for like niqab bans and shit on the basis that you should be able to see people's dicks.
Wait, so this is
that
like that.
applies to such a small amount of people too.
I mean, I'll be honest with you.
because I want to see that dick.
He's a dicks out for Harambe guy.
I will say that the French are really insane about this. I remember swimming in a pool in Paris, and I had 2 old Speedos that were kind of worn out from when I was like a high school swimmer. And so like when I was a high school swimmer, you would just wear multiple suits because like that way you weren't walking around with like transparent fucking uniforms because like they wear out when you're swimming twice a day, 6 days a week.
When your dick's as big and abrasive
and
as mine.
I basically had to like the lifeguard was like, okay, I'll let you do it this one time, but don't come back. Like, you have to come back with just one structurally integral Speedo. Like, they're that into it. Like, they're literally like, wait a minute, are you wearing 2 Speedos? That's against the rules. I'm like, but it's still doesn't matter. Like, they're really, really into it in France, which I mean, like, does that
Liberté, égalité,
Yes.
nudité.
But somehow, neither the liberal nor Republican arguments seem to accommodate the essence, part aesthetic, part cultural, of why Speedos are objectionable. You see, that's the thing about a Rafael Behr call in pre-2010. He takes you on a journey.
Yeah.
You think that he's like really pro Speedos, but now he's like coming back round to the other side.
I wonder what his actual like verdict is going to be on this.
Oh,
like, I
what-
want to see which way Judge Behr comes down on this.
You sweet summer child, you think he comes down on one side of this question.
Oh, because I forgot. Because you could publish anything. You could just like do a column that was like just asking questions as like a delightful little fancy.
A pasty fat man in ill-fitting swimwear transgresses no
What
one's
did you
human
just call
rights.
me?
A pasty fat man in ill-fitting swimwear transgresses no one's human rights, but then it doesn't exactly kill him to wear something else. Cool. Awesome.
I love.
Unless.
I feel like all civil rights debates should involve the figure of the pasty fat man in an ill-fitting swimsuit.
It's like the man on the Clapham omnibus,
Yeah.
but just like
The man on the Clapham omnibus is wearing an ill-fitting speedo.
And frankly, he should see why everyone is served by his dressing more modestly, but that's the real problem with skimpiness. It isn't a question of rights at all.
that's the real problem. The
So
real
wait,
problem with skimpiness.
He just argues like a rights-based question for like 75%, and he's like, that thing, it's actually not about rights at all.
Harry
Speedo.
Potter and the real problem with skimpiness.
Skimpiness is defined by the Oxford English Dictionary as
But
This is a very complicated way of saying, fellas, is it gay to wear pants?
Yeah.
it isn't a question of rights at all, but of dignity and self-knowledge.
What the fuck? No, yes, Gnothi se auton,
Yeah.
as is written above the gates of fucking Alton Towers.
you have to know how big your dick is and how it's going to print and make an informed decision about that.
The great Enlightenment political philosophies
Oh my
All
god.
about this,
were
famously.
defined in reaction against conservative establishments and clerical oppression. They seek emancipation.
What would Ayatollah Khomeini say about this?
Well, he's a man who never showed any girth.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
No.
Very trim,
guessing.
very trim man.
Ayatollah Khomeini, very long dick, very thin dick, not very wide.
But that means they neglect the idea of virtue that constrains rather than liberates. Modesty, chastity, abstinence. As a result,
Oh, my other
So
sisters.
as a result,
I say locking the cock cage around me.
As a result, advocacy of these behaviors is monopolized by religious conservatives who can all too easily caricature liberalism as morally degenerate.
Wait, so
which
he
apparently
saw a fat man in a speedo and thought, "Why is there no liberal argument against this?"
no. He saw the sign at Alton Towers saying, "Please don't wear speedos," and then he imagined a fat man in a speedo to construct
normal.
the liberal argument for it.
It was actually a
Normal.
sign at Alton Towers saying you can't wear Speedos made of yams.
Just saw a sign at Alton Towers that said
mean,
"No fat dudes."
It's the damn
no
British
girth.
psychosis yet again. I've invented a thing that's completely imaginary, and now I'm furious about it.
But he's not
Why
furious.
does it
He's just
say
curious.
no fat
But he's
chicks on this
just
sign and this thing of
bemoaning it.
yams?
Like it's
I think you have to understand that the
Fast and the
pre-2010 Raphael Behr articles are just sort of a curious man just asking some questions. Just so happens that all the questions are very stupid.
Say,
To write this,
New
Yeah.
Labour Guardian produced such insane creatures. I swear to God.
he probably got paid my last year's annual salary to write this.
So
I so much prefer this to fucking like 2 pages of Graham Linehan. You know?
yeah. So this ethical provocation has to be the first for a theme park like the Agora of Ancient Athens.
Wow, where no one was wearing pants, to be fair.
but with rides
Mount
and
Splash Olympus.
but with rides and pigeons snatching chips out of bins.
No, the Agora had that.
Yeah, the Agora had the you could get the log
Had a
flume.
guy jacking it in a barrel. It was cool, man. Crash Future live from the Agora.
Alton Towers has posed an intellectual challenge to the foundations of liberal democracy.
You could just say some incredible
Yes.
things before we had the fascism.
I'm sorry for what I said earlier. This article fucking rules. It's so
I
good.
wanted
This
as
is
a
like
full
something I would
back
write while I
tattoo.
was high. Like, what?
What is the secular case for modesty in the age of moral license? Call it the Speedo question. Here endeth.
Wait, he ends the article?
Yes.
Wait, does he actually say here endeth?
No,
'Cause that
I
would be-
say here
oh,
endeth.
fuck.
I mean,
Damn.
this is basically like, yeah, sorry. I'm just like leaning over. My brain my brain has suddenly become very heavy. I feel like I feel like in one way this is the type of stuff that I used to read on like atheist forums, like the kind of like new atheist forums where they like pretended that they were very smart because they like memorized Hitch 22. And they would kind of just like take these basically like ridiculous non-problems and extend them for like pages and pages of threads.
Oh, like the human pet guy.
Right. Yeah. But they would kind of apply it to things like the bikini and stuff like that, right?
Sarah has 10 sweets, Ranjit has 22 sweets, but why wouldn't the Liberals let me show my dick?
not to
Because of
reintroduce
Islam.
Project Milo, but do you guys know about the human pet guy?
Yes, I actually would like to not talk about the human pet guy. I'm
But like,
afraid.
what I was going to say is that
Human pets at home.
when like all the stuff about the bikini was happening, one of like the arguments on these atheist forums were like, well, the bikini, like it's pointless to even have a bikini anyway because you can see the curves of the woman. So isn't that the same as like a man wearing a Speedo and you can see like the rim of his dick, like
lady shapes with Alan Partridge.
This is that in a column, but it's also just like an example of the liberated like galaxy takes that occurred when like we weren't stuck in the same loop of a year.
Raphael Behr being furious because he bought a bikini and it made him look nothing like Edmund Burke.
On the one hand, I'm furious. On the one hand, I'm just like, I think that this article is insane, and I'm like getting
I love it.
an aneurysm over it. But on the other hand, I think to myself, like, I want to go back to that time.
Yes, the end of history.
When the real end of history is when you show up to your office hungover as shit and you're like, fuck, I've got a deadline today. I'm going to write about my
wearing a
dick.
Speedo because you couldn't find any clean underwear.
It's
And you just like,
Speedo-rama.
it's just funny to me because in the United States, Speedos were never particularly popular. We've always sort of thought of them as like a weird thing that Europeans wear who are somehow gay somehow.
Where do you put a gun in a Speedo?
And when I was-
Real men wear cargo pants.
when
they go swimming.
I was a kid, you'd wear swim trunks. But like, you know, when I go to pools in America or to the beach now, like kids wear almost like cargo shorts, like almost like fucking capri.
Jinko bathing suits.
They swim in capris or in jinkos.
My swimming jeans.
And I mean, obviously, in some
Genies.
cases, for like to avoid fucking sunburns and shit, kids will wear like actual shirts as well when they swim too. But it's the weirdest thing because in a way, it's like that has nothing to do with modesty or Islam, or I guess maybe it's like a weird kind of American modesty.
Yeah.
But it's like
American
nothing
Islam
to do with
just
Islam.
developed from the beach
Like
first.
like somehow you make little kids feel ashamed that if they wear comfortable bathing suits, then like they're gay somehow. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And so what's so strange to me about this is just like that. You can find some bugbear to like attack over this, whether it's the burkini is somehow, I don't fucking know, like that this is somehow restrictive of civil liberties or like unhygienic or whatever. But ultimately, like, I don't think anyone's going to look at what France does with the way that it enforces these rules and be like, oh no, this is a completely apolitical, just hygiene centric focus. Yeah. It's because they hate Muslims. But
you're missing the point of the article, which is that he doesn't care about any of that.
No.
He's just saw a sign and had some thoughts because this is from before the politics came back.
So this is basically bathing suit yam future.
Yes.
This is your uncle rambling
That's exactly
at dinner.
what this is.
Yeah.
This is just because in the end of history, when history had still ended, this is what columnists did, and it's important that we remember that.
We have to have like a museum line that preserves the job of the columnist who just noticed things.
I just love the idea of like American weird like puritanical shit going to its logical conclusion, which is that all kids have to wear niqabs because otherwise you're a pedophile for looking at them.
That's right.
Michelle Houellebecq?
I was going to say, yeah, that's it. So in 2009, we had when we asked questions about bathing suits, it was like, weird. I wonder what John Stuart Mill would say about my thong. And now we have it's everyone either has to be wearing a niqab or no one can wear a niqab.
And like that's the strangest thing, right? Is because he's referencing a real thing that happened in France at that time. The politics were happening. Clearly. It was meat for all of these people to just be able to ignore them.
Yes.
Les politiques.
So So thank you for joining us in that retrospective on just a strange era in column writing.
It's like
I'm gonna leave it a little while before I go back into the Behr archives again, before I go back into the cellar and pull out another fine bottle. But I do hope you all enjoyed this particular very delightful find.
Exactly. It's like a window into a time when like Russell Brand and Jonathan Ross were a thing.
So
Simpler
Everyone
time.
was listening to the Future Heads.
So with that, I say...
Now everyone's listening to the Trash Future Heads, am I right?
Oh, God. So with that, I say, Thank you all very much for listening yet again. This has been Trash Future with just the main cast. And hey,
just the Behr fans.
Okay, so at the time of this recording, there are 17 tickets left for the Trash Future inaugural live union debate, where we will be debating the resolution "This House believes Elon Musk is a real-life Willy Wonka," where I will be the speaker. Milo Edwards will lead the government, and helping Milo will, of course, be comedian Rajiv Karia, previously on the show, as well as friend of the show Grace Blakely. And on the opposition, Hussein Kesvani, permanently in opposition, will be leading a team comprised of comedian Emily Woods and friend of the show James Meadway. So if there are tickets still available, we will have the link in the description below. They may not be. However, we will also be broadcasting the event on Twitch. So it is going to be on our channel, twitch.tv/trashfuturepodcast. And it will be on Thursday, starting at around 7:30 GMT. Now, that's our stated start time, maybe a couple minutes later, but there will be something on the stream for you to look at. It may just be sort of some people milling around the upstairs of the Hen and Chickens pub in Highbury. So, please do get some tickets to that if there are any left, or if there are not, please do tune in on the stream so you can finally see this age-old question settled.
Also, tour dates, gang. 4th of the tomorrow. This comes out on Monday, right? So it comes out
on Tuesday.
It comes out on Tuesday. So tonight.
I've only been doing this podcast for like several years.
Yeah, well, my brain is ruined. Today, the day of the outcoming of this podcast, I will be hosting a smoke comedy with Mark Watson and Glenn Moore. That should be fun. Also, on the 25th of March and the 3rd of March, I'm doing previews of my new show at the Vault Festival in London. I'm also doing Leicester Comedy Festival on the 21st of February and the 22nd of February. 22nd of February is my birthday, so come out to that. 21st is Pindos, and 22nd is preview of a new show. And also, I'm doing shows, and I'm really worried about these. If you live in Stockholm or Oslo, I'm aware this is a bit of a reach.
No, we have Scandinavian fans. They sent us all that delicious at first candy.
If you live in Stockholm or Oslo, and you'll know anyone who might like to go to a comedy show on the 10th of February in Stockholm or the 11th of February in Oslo, please do tell them, because my promoters are not good.
Yes, and if you live in another country, send us some snacks.
Yes, send us snacks.
Yeah, I really enjoyed receiving the snacks from our Swedish friends.
Send us some
DM the show account for the address and send us candy.
Yes.
Do not dox us.
Send us kits.
No.
It's candy to be sent to us.
Yes.
And
Milo, is the new show called Project Milo? Because if not, it should be.
So, I think that's about it, except for me to say that our theme song is Here We Go by Ginseng. You can find it on Spotify. It's very good. Nate looks like he wants to say something.
Also, please listen to What a Hell of a Way to Die if you're interested in left-wing perspectives on military and veterans news.
And, well, there's your problem.
Yeah, listen to that. You were just on a second episode of it.
I've been on 2 episodes now. There's their problem.
You're listening to Left Wing Perspectives.
You sure are.
With me, Jonathan Racism.
Anyway, I think that is about it for us. So we will see you on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.